Welcome to my new series on programming tutorials, and this is going to be a tutorial for C# programming. I'm not going to get into what exactly C# is just yet, but right now I'm just going to introduce you guys to the tools that you're going to need in order to start creating your own C# programs. Your environment, if you will. So the first thing we need to do is install our program, which in this case is going to be Visual Studio. Our programs and tools to have the proper environment may be different depending on what we're going to be working with, but in this case, with C# being the language of choice, we will want Visual Studio. So let's go ahead and do a quick search, and thankfully a community version of Visual Studio 2019 is free to use. At this point, while you're just learning, you're not going to need professional or enterprise, so it'll come at no cost to you. And that is something that I'm always going to be doing with my tutorials, is trying to find the easiest, simplest, and most cost-effective way to work with whatever we'd like to work on. And of course, it'll ask you, hey, what are you interested in? Blah, 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 web applications, desktop applications, mobile. We won't worry about this for now. If you want to answer it, go right ahead, but I don't really care about it at the moment. And of course, if you look down here as well, you will see a quick start guide for developing your first C++ application. I may go ahead and do this one in a separate video once we start doing C++. Personally, I prefer to program in C# over C++, and I'll get into that at a later point as to why I prefer. But let's go ahead and get ourselves set up. What you choose here is entirely up to you. There are many different options such as Azure, Node.js, Python, which is quite popular, .NET, C++. Now, for this tutorial at least, we're going to want to use C##, since we're learning how to use C##. So .NET desktop development is something we're going to want because .NET framework, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, exactly what that is and why it's important. And when you check one of these off, it's going to show you what exactly you have going on over here. And you don't really need to mess too much with any of these. Like, you could check them if you want, but you don't necessarily have to mess with any of that, so we're not going to for now. And there's desktop and mobile development. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the .NET and C++ because I do want to cover a little bit of C++ in a separate tutorial. You have a couple of options for gaming. I would advise that you choose Unity, but I'm not going to do that because I'm not covering that in this set of videos. And you could always go back to this component downloading window at any point and then pick whatever you'd like to add. We'll do that, that's the better option. Oh, one thing I should point out as well is that by default this is going to set everything to your C drive. I don't feel like taking the survey. By default, you want the main Visual Studio files on your C drive, especially if your main C drive is a solid state drive. And if you have two separate drives like I do on my other laptop, not on this one, then it's going to tell you, hey, don't change the directory to your hard disk drive. Just maybe move your project files over there, but leave everything else here in your solid state drive because it's just going to help the program run a bit faster. So with that all out of the way, we're going to go ahead and let this do its thing, and then I'll be right back once this is finished and we're going to get started on our very first program. Based on what you installed, what kind of things we installed earlier, your menu might look different from mine, but since we're going to be practicing C#, you should get a few different items similar to what you see here. And what we're going to be working with mostly is this top one here. It says console application. And if you're not familiar with what a console application is, I'm going to take a second to show you. Find command prompt. So you see here, this little black window, this is called the command prompt. And a console application pretty much runs on a black screen like this with the white text. It is the most basic type of application that you are going to be able to create, and it is commonly used for, these types of apps are commonly used when people are beginning to learn programming. So that's what we're going to be doing in our first lessons, and my next video that comes out is going to be an introductory lesson on creating console applications in C#. If we go ahead and click this, we can name it. We'll just call it Console App 1. Why not? And we're finally back, and here is our console application. And as you can see, when you start a console application in Visual Studio, it is going to give you the absolute bare bones of an application. I'm just going to set this here so you could take a look at what the most basic C# program looks like. With that, that's going to be the end of the first video. You can look at this as kind of a part 0. And in the second video, I guess you could call that one the official part 1, we're going to be looking at the different components of this very basic program and dive into how we can change this to say whatever we'd like to and what the application looks like when we actually run it. But with that, guys, thank you so much for watching and stay tuned for the next video. See ya.